Hi everyone, here's the Book Chemist once again, and this is just a short video to mention how much I liked The Blazing World by Siri Hustvedt, a very intriguing novel about the nature of art and perspective. It's a novel that raises a lot of broad and stimulating philosophical questions about, for instance, how we interact with the world and with art specifically. Can we ever really look at a piece of art without taking into account all of our prejudices about the creator, the work of art's context, our own context? Can we ever really separate art from the artist? And if we can't, what exactly is this distance between the work of art as an object that exists in the world out there and what we fabricate in our mind, our own conception of this work of art? What is this gap? Is it our imagination? Is it some kind of medium in which we all interact? Is it something else entirely? Various different perspectives, or the irony, on these questions are explored through the story of Harriet Burden, an unrecognized artist and the wife of a famous New York art dealer, who decides late in her life to put up an elaborate hoax to get back at the art world that she feels never really recognized their genius. Eventually this hoax misfires, turning her into some kind of novel Prometheus, a Dr. Frankenstein, having to deal with the monstrous consequences of this experiment that she has unleashed. As both the protagonist and the subject of the book, Blazing World is a novel that masquerades, again, oh the irony, as a sort of critical biography. As both the protagonist and the subject of the book, I found Harriet to be quite obnoxious at times, a bit pompous, a bit self-absorbed and full of herself. But at the same time, even that led me to ask the question of whether I might have looked at her differently had she been a man, a fairly central question to the book. After all, literature is littered with self-absorbed, obnoxious, preposterous men that that have become part of the canon. They've been regarded as geniuses and glorious figures. Sherlock Holmes would be the first one that comes to mind. If we look at a real-world equivalent of the tormented and cruel artist, it would be somebody like Picasso. Personally, I thought that the other characters beyond Harriet were what made the novel truly astonishing and truly interesting. Harriet's story is told from a variety of perspectives, as I mentioned, through the perspectives of her daughter, her friend Rachel, a psychotherapist, her associates in the art world, her friends, her lover Bruno, the lover she has later in life. And all of these different perspectives are impressive, first and foremost because Hustvedt is truly incredibly talented in presenting these different points of view, in summoning up a different voice for all of these different characters. She does so very naturally, very deftly. It was a pleasure to experience that. But also because all of these different perspectives turn this book and what would have been an already interesting story into a truly compelling mystery where I found myself really questioning what exactly had happened, whether I could even ever come to learn what exactly had happened in this specific scenario where so many different views were colliding. It turns the book into an enigma and a mystery, almost of the type that Borges or even Umberto Eco would summon in their books. As somebody who doesn't know much at all about the art world, and especially the contemporary art world, I perhaps found Harriet Burden's artworks to be a little naive and pretentious, which interestingly I think the novel dares the reader to come up with this view because supposedly that's the view most critics had of Harriet Burden's works, that they were a bit naive, a bit pretentious, and so it almost challenges you to acknowledge, well, why would you have this sort of view? Is it perhaps because of your prejudices about Harriet? Beyond that, I found that the artworks and Harriet's description as this artistic genius was almost secondary to coming to learn about the impact that these artworks and her work had on her life, and on the many lives that were interwoven with her own, the lives of her family, her friends, her associates, and so forth. It's truly a book that shows how art relates and interacts and comes to influence all of the questions that we ask ourselves, about life, about the world at large. It's a compelling and intriguing book. I definitely recommend to anybody who's looking for an intelligent and gripping mystery, or anybody who's interested in the art world, has a fascination for that world, and would like to read a novel set in that landscape. I was thoroughly impressed, and I definitely think I should explore more of Siri Hustvedt's oeuvre. This was my first book of hers that I read, and I look forward to reading more. Highly recommended. Thank you as always for watching the review, and if you've read it, if you have other novels of hers to recommend, I look forward to hearing about it in the comments as always. Thanks again, and bye everybody.